37% of companies with 250 plus employees are already using AI, but just 20% of the small businesses are. The gap is the difference between who's still in business and who's going to be still in business in the next 2 to 3 years and who isn't. And I'm going to show you exactly how to close this gap in the next few minutes. I'm Marco. I run ERP plus AI implementation for SME day to day. So let's have a look at the changes that actually matter and how artificial intelligence is reshaping SME world. Where we stand right now. So we know that 72% of the organization use Gen AI, at least for one business function. We pretty much know that. And we have a rise of workers using and having access to AI. And we already know that for some specific activities, in this case I was mentioning the marketing tasks alone, the saving is around 5 to 15 hours per week. So here are a list of the 6 areas where AI is changing the games for SMEs. We have automation, customer service, marketing and content creation, decision making, operations and ERP, and workforce skill. So let's have a look and deep dive into each one of those. The core part about automation is actually stop doing things that a computer can do. So there are plenty of things that you can actually automate when you look at any SMEs, but in a company in general, it's not just SMEs. But if you think about, for example, invoice processing and processing things like reorder points and onboarding workflow for new employees, those things are actually fairly easy to automate with the tools that we have nowadays available, like Claude, for example. And this is one of the things where you can actually see real ROI. So if you were to look at all this set of activities, you could potentially save up to 5,200 hours a year in a time that gets recovered when things get automated. That's more or less equivalent to 2.5 full-time employees. Another important area to look at is the customer service. This was probably one of the first areas where you could see some sort of automation coming into play. If you remember, the initial chatbots that were created on the website. So this now has evolved in much better way. So there are very good automation that allows your customer service team to be more proactive and work more efficiently, and of course saving a lot of money. So for example, if you think about FAQs and order stages, or for example if you want to update your customers, or if you want to give your customer 24/7 support, this is actually something that can be really automated in a very good way. I'm thinking about dumping your knowledge base of your products into one chatbot, and if any of your customer actually ask a question to the chatbot can actually give the customer all the answer they want, and this will eventually save you time at the end of the year. Marketing and content creation got a huge boost with the rollout of AI, and we can now see that small businesses can compete with brands that are 10 times their size. So what you can actually do is provide your teams with AI tools, and they will eventually be able to produce content at the same velocity as big agencies. And the other important fact is that the content is personalized to each segment. So there's plenty of opportunities here. You can talk about social posts, email sequences, AD copy, SEO, product description, and so on. And we know that this is already something that's happening right now. So if you are not taking advantage of this, you should indeed do so. So let's now look at one area that's very important for all the SMEs, which is decision making. So here's the point. Insight used to cost millions, right? Because you had to pay for additional tools, and of course, like getting all the information together was hard, but also on the other end, we had wrong information pulled together that would also cause some confusion. So now the approach is completely different, because we can ditch all the gut feeling and all the spreadsheet and things like that. What we can do now is indeed building those. We can build those architecture where the AI layer, it's actually on top of all the system that we actually use. And this is very important, because this AI layer is able to look at real-time data. I'm talking about dashboard. We can run predictive demand forecasting. We can look at anomalies, so we reduce the risk of having wrong data inside the system. So this is really one of the things that I care the most, and one of the things that I used to spend a lot of time when I'm working with my clients. Moving on to another important business part of this AI revolution, let's talk about operation and ERP. This is one of the key things that it's happening right now. So we will now have either AI native workflows replacing manual processes into your ERP system, or AI wrapper around your ERP system, or actually AI native ERP system. So this is a huge impact on operations, because if you think about any business, there's plenty of interaction together, but you can still segment each section specifically. So you can look, for example, at your supply chain and see what can actually be automated there. So couple of examples here. I've listed the auto reorder triggers for parts if you are a business that sells item, or running some sort of risk scoring for your suppliers, analyzing your demand and all your sales order, for example, coming from different pipeline. This has become much easier right now with AI. We can also do the same thing and approach this into what's finance and admin. So one of the things that I hear many clients talking about is invoice matching. So imagine if you have a purchase order, an item receipt, and the invoice coming from your supplier. Of course, there might be mismatches between the three documents, and this is something that once was run manually, but now with AI you can actually automate that. This is very important. Okay, we have also other parts and other business segments that can be put under the lens with AI, and this also leads to the next slide, which is actually looking at HR and workforce and skills. So why this is important? It is important because nowadays it's much more useful having someone that has already spent time with AI rather than bringing into the team someone that doesn't actually have any experience with AI. Why is that? So Deloitte is saying that very specifically here. So the AI skill gap is cited as the biggest barrier to AI integration, above cost, above data quality, and above regulation. So even though we hear that many of the jobs in the market will be replaced by AI, we shouldn't see this as a threat, but we should see that as an opportunity. So the key here is, if you are working in a company, or if you are a manager in a company, or CEO, CTO, whatever, CFO works very well as well, you have to look at the real opportunity that you have. So if AI can automate things, you have to be able to understand what AI does, or at least you have to build a team that is able to understand what AI does. If you do that, the investment is going to, of course, require you to maybe bring in-house someone that has AI expertise, or train the team on AI, but the ROI is massive because a smaller team can do 10 times the work. Okay, so that's very important. One thing that I always suggest to my client is you have to have your team ready to be trained and learn about AI. So here is what's next. The shift is to move things from tool to agent. So we shift to agentic AI. That's the biggest change in 2026. You can see this everywhere. If you are reading in the news, we see the work moved from tools run by human, manually run by human, switched and passed onto agent. So now this is a key concept. It's a brand new concept that is something new for everyone working in the ERP system. It was a new thing for me as well. So we are basically moving away from the old way of working with any ERP system, right? So we used to do things manually. For example, I'll give you a practical example. Say that you have one document in front of you. You are used to type the document number into the system, and then on the system, you can actually look at the information, right? So you type the document number on the search bar, and then the system returns the document. You open the document, you look, I don't know, at the purchase order lines or sales order lines, you look at who's the customer, what's the delivery date, and things like that. That's going to go. So the interaction with the ERP system, I think that interaction is the right word to be used here, it's going to be completely different. Why? Because now we will have agent doing that for us, right? So we are not going to do this manually, but we're going to prompt the agent to do that for us. So we are going to ask, for example, our agent to look at that specific sales order and see which line was fulfilled, for example, which line is already pending, is still pending. Okay, so that's the key here. That's the key. And of course, this requires you to be up to speed with all the things that are related to interacting with agents. And of course, this is also another important things to consider, because everything that we're going to build is going to be built for AI rather than humans. So that's very important. Okay. And finally, I want to pass to you the hard truth. So the real risk isn't adopting AI, it's not adopting it. So we know already that there's going to be competitors, that are already using AIs, and the ones using AI will cut costs faster than you can on price. So that's very important. So of course there are also other important aspects to consider. There's going to be like a speed gap. So AI enabled competitors move 5 to 10 times faster, probably even more. There's going to be like a talent drain. Okay, so if you don't move, and if you don't think, and if you don't plan to acquire AI talent, that's something that's going to have an impact on your business. And of course, there's going to be like a technical debt. And finally, like LinkedIn research director 2026 said that businesses that don't adopt AI will struggle to keep up. Now, before we wrap up, I want to share with you a roadmap that you can actually use. This is actually my framework that I use with all the clients, and it basically gives you an idea of how you can approach this change, this transition for the first time. So ideally in the first 30 days, you pick one thing and you try to find one of your most repetitive activity that you do, right? So probably you can actually find more than one, and I'm pretty sure you will find more than one in different segments, supply chain, finance, and so on. But just pick one, and then you choose an AI tool to actually see if you can automate that. So one thing that I usually do is, once I've identified the bottleneck, I actually ask Claude Code to help me and streamline this process. And of course, with this alongside, you also want to set measurable baseline and get your team up to speed with the tool that you're using. So why this is important? Because of course, if you're a CEO or CTO or a manager, you might want to pass your knowledge to your team straight away. So because it's not going to be you doing the job. The next step, from 31st to 60 days, you will measure and expand. So this basically means analyzing, before and after metrics. So you see what you actually were able to do and what you were actually able to put together, and actually what you've been saving during the first 30 days. And then once you've consolidated the framework, once you tailor the framework to something that is actually relevant for your business, you can indeed build something that is reusable for the team and can be applied to your business as well, and in other segments. Thank you very much for watching, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this.